Van Hollen pushes Noem hard on a Supreme Court order, and her answers leave more questions than answers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Secretary, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And I was glad to see in your recent testimony that you reaffirmed your obligations to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I understand you had an exchange with Senator Murphy on the Abrego Garcia case. And so I'm just going to put the question directly to you. Are you or DHS doing anything to comply with the 9-0 Supreme Court order to facilitate his return to the United States? Just yes or no.
This administration is following all federal court orders.
Madam Secretary, this is a simple question.
It's the president's prerogative on conversations that happen with the president of El Salvador.
I ask a simple question. We have a limited amount of time. I just asked you, Madam Secretary, whether or not you or the Department of Homeland Security are taking any action to facilitate the 9-0 Supreme Court decision to facilitate his return. This is a very simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders to make sure that we.
So you are because the court ordered that you facilitate his return. So you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question. But what I would tell you is that we are following court orders, and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
Madam Secretary,
it's alarming to me because he's a human smuggler.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to have to reclaim
a terrorist, and he's not a U.S. citizen. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and he's home. If he were to come back
Madam
here,
Secretary,
we would take him immediately.
All right,
back
I'm going to have to, Madam Secretary, you should know a couple facts then, which is, number one, in 2019, the immigration court said that he should not be returned to El Salvador because it would put his life in danger. The Trump administration at the time did not appeal that decision. After that, he got a work permit and was working legally in the United States of America. This is also why the district court and the appellate court and the Supreme Court have ruled as they have. I suggest that rather than make these statements here, that you and the Trump administration make them in court under oath, because despite what you just said, the federal district court whose judge is hearing this case right now said, and I'm quoting, that the administration has provided no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any other terrorist activity. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for his due process rights.
Yes, you are, sir. You've
no,
been vouching
no,
for
Madam
him.
Secretary, with respect.
I would suggest that you defend and stand alongside the victims of illegal crime.
This is political rhetoric.
The citizens who live here and are United States Americans. I would suggest you advocute for them as hard as you do. Madam Secretary,
I know you're doing a political speech here.
No,
I get it. I'm asking questions of law. No, you're just spewing rhetoric.
I truly believe this. I truly believe this as an American.
Let me ask you this: Do you agree with Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores that, I'm quoting, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." End of quote.
Sir, we are utilizing every due process tool that this Congress has afforded us. The Congress decides what due process is appropriate for every situation. Expedited removal is a due process that you have afforded us that we are utilizing. The Alien Enemies Act.
I'm going to reclaim my time, Madam Secretary.
So we are giving due process and using the tools that this Congress has given us.
This is really, I'm asking sort of simple questions of law, and simple questions like, are you complying with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision? And you seem to think that's some kind of trick question. Let me ask you this. You were down at CCOT in El Salvador, and you said, and that, I'm quoting, "It is one of the tools in the toolkit that we will use." And it's well known that the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador to keep these individuals, including those who the U.S. courts have determined were illegally taken out of the country in violation of their due process rights. Have you seen the grant document between the United States and the government of El Salvador with respect to the CCOT?
It's important that everybody knows the consequences of what happens for their actions in this country. When you break the law and you're a member of a foreign terrorist organization,
I asked you a question. Have you seen the document? This is not hard.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And What are the provisions of the doc? So do you know what entities in El Salvador are receiving the funds?
I'm sure you can see this document as well and have looked at it for evaluation.
I'm glad you raised that, Madam Secretary, because I sent you a letter along with many of my colleagues here on April 8th asking for, among other things, that document. Will you respond to the letter that we sent?
I will respond to your letter.
Thank you. Can I get some sense of when?
We will take a look at it. I don't remember seeing your letter yet, but I will certainly take a look at it.
Well, it's been there over a month.
The senator's time has expired.
No, Madam Chair.
Senator Kennedy?
Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary.
The Secretary, I have some additional questions.
No, sir, that's up to you to manage that time. Senator Kennedy.
Madam Secretary.
I need a little help from a chair that respects the members of the
Madam
committee. I'm sorry,
Secretary.
Madam Chair. This is...
Today, Senator Chris Van Hollen went straight for the jugular with DHS Secretary Kristi Noem over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, a case that has been at the center of legal battles for years. Van Hollen didn't mince words. He asked directly, is the Department of Homeland Security taking action to comply with the Supreme Court's unanimous 9-0 decision to facilitate Garcia's return to the U.S.? Noem's answer? A lot of words, but very little clarity. She repeatedly said the administration follows federal court orders, but stopped short of confirming whether they are actively facilitating Garcia's return. That's a huge deal because the Supreme Court's decision isn't optional. It's the law. Van Hollen pressed her further, citing the facts. In 2019, the Immigration Court ruled Garcia should not be returned to El Salvador for fear it would endanger his life. He then legally worked in the U.S., and subsequent rulings, including by the Supreme Court, confirmed that his due process rights had been violated. But Noem pivoted, framing the debate as a matter of political rhetoric and national security, even calling Garcia a known terrorist, a claim that federal courts have explicitly rejected, noting there's no evidence linking him to MS-13 or any terrorist activity. The senator fired back. This isn't political, this is about law. He reminded Noem that due process is a constitutional right, even for non-citizens, quoting the Supreme Court's precedent in Reno v. Flores. The back and forth exposed a central tension in DHS policy: how to balance enforcement with adherence to judicial orders and constitutional protections. Van Hollen highlighted that the Trump-era policy of paying the government of El Salvador to hold individuals, including those the courts ruled were illegally deported, raises serious legal and ethical questions. In short, Van Hollen pressed for clarity. Noem gave ambiguity. The audience is left asking, is DHS actually complying with the law, or is this another case of political posturing? This is a textbook example of lawmakers holding the executive branch accountable, and why these hearings matter. Subscribe to Left Lens for in-depth, no-nonsense breakdowns of the hearings that actually impact America. Don't just watch, understand the law, the politics, and the consequences.